Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. I want to start a new train of thought on this week with you. And the main thing I want to talk about for the upcoming weeks is the concept of redemption. We know that in the beginning, God who made the heavens and the earth, God who is all powerful, God who is all sufficient, God who is omnipresent, he's omnitemporal, meaning he's all places at all times. But God is something else. God is also omniscient. He already knows all things in and of himself. He is all knowing. The difference between new information and old information for you is something that you already knew, but you always can obtain new information. But with God, he already has all information. There's nothing that you could ever tell God in your prayer life that would ever surprise him. And this is why we shouldn't sway away or be shy when it comes to coming to God. We shy away from people because people will judge us, but a lot of times we shy away from God in our prayers, but you should never be afraid to pray to God because God already knew what you stood in the need of, both materially and spiritually, before you ever came. He knows your ins and outs. He knows your uprising, your downsetting. He knows you in and out. He knows you better than you know yourself. There is nothing you could ever bring to the table that would ever surprise God. He's all knowing. He's omniscient. Put that on the table right now. God already knows all things. And we look into the creation story in Genesis. We're talking from Genesis, the 3rd chapter. And after God created everything, created mankind, and then something surprising happens in Genesis 3, verses 8 and 9, I believe. It says that the voice of the Lord moved in the cool of the evening. And he calls out to Adam, saying, Adam, where art thou? Adam, where are you? It seems odd that the all-knowing would ask a question, because the asking of a question is praise. I would not ask you a question if I did not think it's within your inventory and your power to give me an answer. Yet this is God who we're talking about, the all-knowing one, who knows all things from their beginning. He knows the end from the beginning, and yet he asks a question. Adam, where art thou? We know that he wasn't referring to his physical placement because God's voice was already moving in the midst of the garden in the cool of the evening. He knew the physical whereabouts of Adam. He couldn't have been talking about anything relating to maybe his job or his function. He already knew that. But at the time when this happens, man has already fallen into sin. Man has already betrayed his promise, his commitment to God, and that he hearkened to the voice of his wife. He made a choice and decided to disobey God. And when that happened, Adam, where art thou? You've fallen into something that I don't identify with. You have now become unholy while I am still holy. You have become sinful where I am sinless. You have taken on a thing that I didn't put you in. Because when God made man, he was made to mirror the image of God in the earth. As God reigned in heaven, man was to do the same on earth. But when God looks down at Adam, Adam, where art you? Because you don't look like what I made. You don't look like how I left you. Something's different. Adam, where are you? Referring to the spiritual state that he had fallen into. So now comes the dilemma, because I know where you are physically, but what do I do about you spiritually? Because I don't understand where this is. I can't relate to this thing you've fallen into, this sin. I can't relate to it because I've never been there. And anybody who's known anything about, maybe you have a family member and maybe they've been on drugs. You don't know how crippling drug addiction can be if you've never been a drug addict. You don't know how crippling alcoholism can be until you've been an alcoholic. You don't know how crippling even being a severe diabetic can be unless you've had diabetes or you have neuropathy or you have issues with your blood sugar. If you've never been sick, it's harder to empathize with a condition that you've never been in. So God asked the question, Adam, where art thou? You've fallen into something that is strange to me. I've never been in sin. But there's a dilemma. God hates sin, but he still loves Adam. What do you do when what you love is tangled up in something that you hate? And for God to be just, because at this point he's already kicked the angels out of heaven that rebelled against him and followed Satan. They've already been kicked out of heaven, and they sinned, if for nothing else, for Satan's pride, wanting to be like God. So God punishes sin. So how is God going to punish man for the sin without killing him? Because if he doesn't kill the sin, he seems unjust, and now the devil has some ought against God, like you would see in a court. But God is just. So what is God to do? It's almost like his back is against the wall, because he loves Adam. He knows he's fallen into sin. He knows he was disobedient. What do I do to get rid of the sin that I hate, but preserve the human, the creation that I love? If you're a parent and love your child, you understand somewhat the dilemma. Because how do you correct a child and get the bad behaviors out of them to set them on the right path? Because you don't want those to be in the child, but you love the child enough not to get rid of the child. This is about the closest love connection we can understand of what God saw in his creation, his precious creation, Adam. Because Adam is a reflection of God in the earth. Just as your child is, in some cases, a reflection of you as the parent, in some cases. So, what is God to do? Adam, I love you, but I hate what you did. What is God to do? Let's talk about it next week. I love you. Heaven shine upon you, and God bless.